Hi and welcome to this video about histograms. It's going to be focused on exam style questions. I'm going to go through a couple of typical exam questions. So let's start with example 1. So this table gives some information about the speeds of 100 cars in kilometers per hour. It's a group frequency table, so this is showing that 15 cars were going between 60 and 65 and so on. Now, with the fact that with a group frequency table we may have different class widths, that's the distance between this number and this number, it means that we need to consider what's known as the frequency density. So frequency density is the frequency divided by the class width. So what we're saying is we need to use this number and divide it by the distance or the number between there and there, how wide this class width is. So for this one the class width is 5 because it's 65 take away 60. Next one, it's also 5. Next one is 10. Next one is 20. So that's how wide these groups are. Now, so we've just seen what the class width is. We know the frequency, so to work out the frequency density we do the frequency and divide it by the class width. So the frequency density for this row here is 3. And then we just repeat that process for each of these. So we've now got a frequency density for each class width. So we now need to transfer that onto our graph. So this is what's been given. I've just gone over the lines to make them stand out for the major intervals. I've noticed that on some of the questions that you can get that aren't actual exam questions, sometimes the quality of these lines make it difficult to actually read them. So I've just reinforced that for that. But if you do get one in the exam, don't worry, it will be really clear to read. Anyway, so we're going to have frequency density down this side. So this is our frequency density. Notice that they haven't given us any numbers at this stage. So just go back to your table. We'll look at the biggest number. The biggest number in the frequency density is 5. So this means that we've got to have 5 as our highest value on here. So if you just count these, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, realistically, we can only put the 5 either here, so each one of these counts as 1, or here. I'm going to put it here. And the reason we can only put it there is if I put it anywhere else, these are going to be in really awkward intervals to work out. So you want to make sure that the actual values that you end up having to read off are sensible. If I put 5 there, that means every 2 is going to be 1. Every 2 of these blocks is going to be 1. So 2, 1. And this is our frequency density. Okay, so I've got my frequency density now. And all I need to do now is put on these values. So between 60 and 65, the frequency density is 3. So 60 and 65, it goes up to 3. So all I do here is using a Penton ruler is I draw a bar that goes up to 3 and is as wide as 60 to 65. So just write that in for this example, just to show you where it is. You don't need to write that in, but I'm just showing you exactly what I've done. So I've put between 60 and 65 with the frequency density of 3. So the next one is going to be the next bar along, so that's between 65 and 70, and it's frequency density of 5. Go up to 5, down here, and there's my frequency density. Now, to save time, I've just completed the rest. So that's what it looks like when it's finished. So that's the question done. Now I just want to show you something which will help us when we answer the next question, which is really important when you trying to do some of the histogram questions. And that is, if you consider this rectangle here, this rectangle, that distance there is 5, and obviously it's 3 up there. So the area of this rectangle here is 15. So that bar has an area of 15. This one, it's 5 wide there, and it goes up to 5. So it's 5 times 5, so the area of that rectangle is 25. This one is 10 and it goes up to 3.6. So the area of this rectangle is 10 times 3.6, which is 36. And this final one is 20 wide and it goes up to 1.2. So 20 times by 1.2 is 24. Now, as I say, this isn't part of the actual exam question. It's going to help us with the next question, but it helps us build up that understanding. So these numbers, 15, 25, 36 and 24, are here. What this is showing you is, if you have the histogram drawn, sometimes the histogram's already drawn for you, the rectangle, the area of that rectangle that forms the bar, will be the frequency. So that's something that we're going to use in the next example. So example 2 now. So the incomplete table and histogram gives some information about the ages of people who live in the village. So we're given this table, this graph here at the moment. So it's about age in years, frequency density. Notice there's no scale on the side here yet, so we can't actually work out the areas of these. So let's look at the table that goes with this. So use the information in the histogram to complete the frequency table below. Now, you can see there's some gaps there. It tells you between 0 and 10 the frequency is 160. So let's go back to the graph. So the area of this is 160. Now that tells us that because this is 10, we must have times 10 by 16 to get 160. So we can use this table and the idea that the area of a bar in a histogram gives you the frequency to work out the scale. So I now know the scale. If that's 16, these must be going up in 4s. Okay, so let's go to the next one. 10 to 25. So this is 15, and we times that by 4. So the area of this rectangle is 60. So if the area is 60, that represents the frequency. And the last one that we've got to fill in as a gap is 25 to 30. So this width here is 5, and it goes up to 8. So this rectangle is 5 times 8, which is an area of 40. So the frequency that it represents is 40. So that's part A complete. Now all we need to do is finish the frequency diagram, which is the histogram. So we've got to complete this bit here. So we're going to need to just add in the class width, and we're going to need to work out the frequency density for these last two. Obviously the first three haven't been drawn. So the class width and for this one is 10, and the class width this one is 30. So the frequency density is the frequency divided by the class width. So the frequency divided by the class width gives us 10. 100 divided by 10. For this one, 120 divided by 30 gives us 4. So let's go back to our diagram. So for the first one, we're doing between 30 and 40. So we're doing between here and here. And the frequency density that we're using for that one is 10. So between 30 and 40 we need to go up to 10. And the next one, between 40 and 70, the frequency density is 4. So between 40 and 70, frequency density is 4. So that's that one done. So we've done both of those questions. I hope that's helped.